Alright, we lost all of our progress, but we're gonna give this another shot. I want to smash my desktop, rip my vocal cords out, and cannibalize some hikers. In our cosmology, the monad is the fundamental question. Why is there something instead of nothing? This isn't an individual, this isn't an agent, it has no agency, this is not a god. This is older than God, if there is a God. It's the first suspect shit of your existence, that you exist at all. If you are just joining us and want someone to hold your hand, go through our older order development videos. This question is not uncommon, and I watched a number of videos about it from the I fucking love science point of view. And the general consensus on that question is a term that encapsulates why I hold Camarilla science in such disdain. Brute fact. On this point, we're having trouble moving forward because we're limited as a species. Our consciousnesses aren't that high, but we're incapable of acknowledging that fact. So instead of saying we can't move forward, aren't ready to move forward, don't know how to move forward, we'll instead deploy a brute fact and say, this is just something you have to accept as it is. This is the way it is because we just say so, okay? And in my opinion, that's a very unscientific way of looking at things. We're able to observe patterns above and below. Things happen for reasons. Even if the rules change, there are rules, and there are greater rules determining how our rules change. Instead of taking the position, this is something that probably can be figured out, even if it never is figured out, and instead opting for the position, you can't explain everything, except for the things we tell you we can't explain. And if you refuse to accept that there isn't a chain here, even though there are chains everywhere, and we make our living examining these chains, we're going to cause you problems. It's an agitating, but thankfully blatant admission of weakness and hypocrisy. When questions get a little too threatening to the human ego, better to shut it all down. The fact this is accepted, and accepted in that happy, holistic bullshit sense, really bugs me. Because it's a false humility thing. False. You're framing this as science's ultimate win. You figured out reality. When your victory is founded on your barring people from moving forward on something that is obviously unfinished. Or imposing the idea this isn't a question at all. This isn't a question that can be asked. 2 plus 2 is 5. Even though, if this were an... when you get answers, you tend to stop asking questions. Or rather, you lock down an answer and move on to the next thing that... the next question that answer allows you to work on. That isn't happening here, and it really agitates me. But that all got me thinking. How can we, right now, work on the monad question? Well, I think there are two ways of moving forward. The first is the monad is a benevolent question. Because in thinking about it, I realized the monad is the fundamental why. We can't even begin to answer that fundamental why right now. But the other thing I realized is with this why comes what or that. And our existence is that. Our existence is what? We haven't entirely or even basically worked out our what yet, but our what is self affirming. It's self evident. Cogito ergo sum. And I think that phrase was initially used in a different way. We're using it here just for self evidence. Stated another way, for us, you perceive, therefore there is something to be perceived. So on the grand chart, even though we haven't worked out all aspects of the way our reality works, we know that we exist. We have what on the board. Point one here means we have self affirming components we can work with. We are in the game. That leads us into point two, which is a fact and an outlook. A present means a past. A result means a process. Every single thing happens for a reason, and you can say that factually from the most Redditor fedora tipping neckbeard point of view imaginable. Existence is a bunch of dominoes. And the reason I say I hate establishment or Camarilla science is because there is a ton of positive overlap between spiritualism and science. Of course, when you are not in a wheelchair or wearing a silly hat and molesting children. When you're a human being who deserves to be alive, there is a lot of benefit in mixing spiritualism and science. As above, so below. A principle that works in scientific and spiritual fields. The chains above might be so complicated we can't perceive them as chains, but our shortcomings as a species has no bearing on the operations of reality. Just because we're stupid doesn't mean they aren't there. That's where faith comes in. Faith not in a god or an establishment or whatever, but faith in patterns. Faith in the above and in the below, even if we aren't capable of processing or even perceiving them in ways palatable to our human minds. So when you're feeling lost, not that it's much consolation, you do have a few things you can count on. You exist on top of a question many people want not even to acknowledge as a question because they have no means of answering it. Yet, if you keep asking questions, you always end up right back where you started, existing on top of this thing you can't answer, presently. But you don't exist on top of just a question. You do exist in a self-affirming reality you can work on figuring out. You are a creature of what? You're a stuff golem trying to interface with creatures of why, living questions. And those heights, those answers, probably can be achieved, even if they never are. And I think what bothers me about people is that they are so what-centered, not why-centered. Even people who are supposedly alive to do why shit if you try to figure out how to remove illusions, you're going to be mauled and mutilated by the crowd. I think that happens because we are, as a species, what creatures. But I'm finding small amounts of comfort in knowing, despite the many violent illusions, demoralizing illusions of the what, there is factual, self evident evidence of something more going on. And that's disturbing enough to the powers that be that they have to run the gamut of increasingly ridiculous reasons not to pay attention to these self evident facts or to ask these fundamental questions. And that was a summary, and we might wrap this video up here, because that's a nice spot to leave off on. And the next thing we were going to get into was bugmen, and I don't want to deal with bugmen right now. All varieties of bugmen, by the way. Hylics across the board. Oh god. We'll save that for another time. I don't have the strength to deal with Hylics at the moment. I would really like to push a button and bring all the Hylics into my cave in the mountains so we can eat them. I would rather eat them than talk about them right now. But being thankful for the monad is like being thankful for the sun. Your vicinity to it nourishes you, nourishes your existence, and casts away shadows. Shadows probably coming from disgusting bugmen. Fucking Hylics. Disgusting. But that about rippity wraps this one up. I hope you enjoyed watching, because I certainly enjoyed making it. Like if you enjoyed, because it helps me out a lot. Subscribe if you haven't, because we do this shit sometimes. And comment, I love hearing from you. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Really, we had a lot of fun on the channel. So much fun. In fact, you can ask about how much fun we're having. That's much we have on this channel, and I look forward to doing this with you guys again in the future.